Hi and welcome to Illuminations with Tiina and Fi. I'm Tiina and this lovely lady next to me is Fi.
Hi everybody, I'm
Hi.
Fi.
This is our first Illuminations and we thought, what should we be talking about today? And the subject that we came up with was authentic self. Partly because that kind of concept is all around social media at the moment. So we thought, interesting to talk about. And also because one of those words that came up when we talked about doing illuminations together was that we wanted to be authentic. And therefore, yes, what is authentic self then? So therefore the subject today. We were talking about this, Fi, and I said to you, I don't have a clue what authentic self means. I mean, I know I want to be authentic to myself, but what is authentic self? So I'm just going to roll that one to you.
Okay, thanks Tiina. Well, in my usual style of lifelong learner, I did quite a bit of research and I did a lot of looking around, watched some TED Talks. It's an interesting one. What's just literally 10 minutes before I sat down came into my mind for me was the Gandhi quote, which is, be the change you want to be, you want to see.
Okay.
Why did that come into my head? So I started to unravel that a little bit and thought about, I've done a values kind of inventory kind of thing and discovered that integrity, freedom are very much part of my, value system. Equality, definitely. So therefore, does authentic self, can it be objective, or is it like one's purpose? Is it subjective?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I would say authentic self needs to come from within. Yeah. And in order to know my authentic self, I need to really know myself. I guess that's a starting point.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But I'm wondering how I can connect
oneself.
Sorry,
Tiina. How does one know oneself?
And that is another really, really good question. So I think that, I think knowing oneself is actually one of the biggest journeys you can take. I think we think that we know ourselves. But then when we start questioning it, it actually turns out that we form ourselves according to other people's beliefs about ourselves or who we should be. So we're trying to fit a mold quite often. Not all of us, many of us. And then it also means, okay, so striving for that authentic self, how do I know when I'm there?
Yeah, I've watched quite a few TED Talks and I have got a few notes because I couldn't keep it, not detail preference, all in my head. And actually, I found an interesting channel, Tiina, bizarrely, called Talk Therapy Channel. Have you heard of that one? Yeah.
Nope.
Anyway, I found that one because I checked it out on YouTube. And that was really interesting because there's a woman there called Tammy Fletcher who is a psychotherapist, I think, and she was talking about finding your authentic self. Who are you? And she was saying that not being in touch with your authentic self can leave you a bit empty, which is an interesting concept as well.
Okay, so if you're not being your authentic self, you would know because you are feeling empty.
Yeah. Okay. And she said, in line with what you've just said, that often we live according to the rules of others.
Okay.
And we need to learn to listen to our own needs and wants and intuitions. And here we go. Brené Brown language, courage to stand strong in your self-belief. So we're back to the courage bit, which came into my head as well. That definition she has of vulnerability is courage, isn't it, Brené? It's to do with, I can't remember it in detail. So this Tammy Fletcher said, design your life to express your authentic self. So it feels like we've got to know our authentic self first.
Mm-hmm.
And once we know that, so maybe what we need to know is what are the rules of others that we're putting upon ourselves. And they're probably the monkey brains, aren't they? They're the little gremlins. So once we know what they are, we can sift them back out as much as possible.
Okay.
Focus on what our inner voice is saying, our gut and our heart, the other two brains.
Mm-hmm.
And then start to design our life around what that is saying as opposed to what we have imposed on us.
Yeah. So we're saying, okay, so knowing oneself, step one, knowing the other expectations in life, whether it's other people that we know, our family, friends, media, you know, social expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then kind of separating them out.
Yeah.
And then you need to start listening to your heart and gut.
Yeah, it's working all that crap out, isn't it? You know. Because when do you know when you're being authentic self?
I think that's a really difficult one.
Do you?
Yeah. What about you?
I'm just looking at Daniel Laporte, one of her truth bombs on the wall here that's quite important to me. You are so capable of frequent bliss. So when I'm actually in a moment of bliss, which is starting to get more and more now, is that when I'm actually being authentic self, I'm actually listening to me and I'm doing, and this isn't about being selfish and self-centered, but I'm designing a life that is more about what is me, my needs and wants, as opposed to what culturally is being passed on to me. Family wise, you know, society as a woman, you know, blah blah blah. So yeah, I'm just wondering, is that when I'm being authentic self, is when I'm in that?
I'm guessing so. I'm guessing so, and I'm also thinking, because you're saying, yeah, it's not being selfish, and I think when you're at peace with yourself, you have so much more to give to other people, right?
Yeah.
So you actually end up being more loving.
Yeah.
When you're kind of honoring yourself.
Well, I just read David Hamilton, literally dragged it out, and I literally picked it up. It's funny, you put it out to the universe, comes to you. He calls it the law of personal gravity. The more we are our authentic selves, the more people are drawn to us.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I'm guessing that you draw in the right kind of people.
Yeah.
The kind of people who will accept you for who you are, and therefore you can more easily then be your authentic self.
What's the right kind of people? Not okay with right in a way. What do you mean by that?
The right kind of people in your life, I'm guessing I mean the kind of people who will accept you for who you are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who accept you, what's that lovely Brené quote? For your foibles, as opposed to despite them, they love you.
Yeah, exactly.
He actually comes up with a bit of, he calls it self-love gym, David Hamilton.
Okay.
He talks about, take some time to reflect on everything that makes you uniquely you.
Say that again?
Sorry, take time to reflect on everything that makes you uniquely you. And he talks about not just everything that's lovely, but some of the other stuff as well. And your hopes and your dreams. Even include how you act when you fail, because that's part of you too. And think about people who have influenced you, helped mould you. And think about events that have influenced you and put it kind of together. So that's quite helpful, because that will give you maybe the bigger picture, and then you could do what you were saying in stage 2 is we start to sift out what's maybe outward and inward, which is the nature-nurture debate.
Yeah. I mean, one of those things that's just kind of lingering in my head right now, and I don't know if I'm kind of pushing this too far, but that's kind of my authentic self, questioning it to the limits, you know, the outer limits, right? So we're talking about kind of being yourself and being true to yourself and all that. But somehow I'm thinking other people need to be included in ways, because I'm thinking, and again, I know this is taking it to a very far level. Imagine a psychopath, right?
Mm.
True to themselves, you know, this is me, and I'm going to do what makes me feel good, right?
Mm.
And they walk around the world and doing stuff that makes them feel good.
Uh-huh.
But that often hurts other people a lot.
Okay.
So, and that's just kind of lingering in my head a little bit. Like, where do other people fit in? Because I think we need to be respectful of other people.
Yeah.
How does that fit into authentic self? Or did I push it too far?
No. I suppose the question is a psychopath not very comfortable with too many labels, as you know me, but is a person who is at that extreme end of mental illness, if it's construed as that, or personality, you know, not okay. Is that being authentic self, or is that back to this thing where the balance of the external is so greater than the internal? Because we know that most people innately have got a desire to love and be loved, you know, innately. We know that through a whole load of scientific research. And you've got me thinking, maybe that's this back to the tipping point again, which, you know, I'm a bit obsessed about, whether the outside and the external's got so massive that the internal can't be heard.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm putting it to that extreme is because what if somebody goes, well, I'm just being my authentic self, and I'm sorry you got hurt, but I'm just being me. And it's like, and somehow that feels wrong, because
it feels a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I'm thinking authentic self is something very beautiful about that concept. But then if you push it like that, then it's not anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it feels like okay. I mean, it does feel like I don't know if that is being authentic self in a way, but is that a judgment?
I don't know.
You know, on Pinterest, where I hang out quite a lot, as you know, I've got a lot of my community of experienced narcissistic, again label, but narcissistic relationships, or with a person who's of a more narcissistic. Is that being authentic self, behaving like that, like Rob on the Archers? You know, is that him being authentic self? It's a good question. I'm going to have to sit with that for a bit.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to sit with that for a bit. It's a good question.
Okay.
I was touched with some guy. I don't know whether this is taking us off a little bit. I really liked him. He's a young kind of designer. You might know him, Mark Echo. I felt like, you know, he does t-shirt designs and that. And he came up with a formula, which was interesting. Action. I couldn't quite get my head around it. So action minus fear, which means, you know, doing.
Yeah.
Divided by self. And he defined self as not being selfish and not being selfless. It's self.
Yeah.
Divided by self, that's actually kind of who you are.
Okay. So okay, I need to almost write this down. Action minus fear. Divided by self. And self is not selfish, and self is not selfless.
Well, it can be more about selfless as opposed to selfish. I think he was saying it can be more tipped that way.
Okay.
And that's about what was inside, what's inside.
Mm-hmm.
That's another one I have to think a bit about. You have to ignore the noise to hear the unique self. So maybe what he's saying is fear is where the noise is, which we know, you know, the gremlins and the monkeys and all that.
Yeah.
So once you take that away, and you've got your action. So that's doing, being, divided by self. So that's whom you then start to hear, maybe. That's about kind of what's inside. Interesting.
It is interesting, but I'm also thinking, does action have to be without fear, or can action be with fear and you do it anyway?
Well, a bit of fear is always good because it means that you're
you're doing worthwhile.
Stretching in the comfort zone, you're kind of alive and breathing as opposed to flatlining through life.
Yeah.
I mean, he was talking about noise, your own voice, how to find your own voice. Maybe that's what he's coming at it from. So what this basically shows is that it isn't really straightforward. So if we talk about being authentic self on social media and business and entrepreneurs and solopreneurs as we are, I kind of come back to where I started. So can it be, a definitive kind of statement, or is it more a kind of personal truth? Don't know.
I don't know. I think this is something that we probably need to ponder a bit more, and maybe we should just throw that question out there.
That's a good one.
There listening, think is authentic self. So it's an interesting discussion to have, because I think everybody will have a different take on it.
Brilliant. Actually, that'd be really helpful if other people could join in and let us know what they're thinking. And we can always come back in a future illumination. Look at this again. I'm an internal reflector, you're an internal reflector. We kind of take these things in and we mull them over and look at frameworks to kind of see where they fit. So other people's contributions would be brilliant. I mean, Brené Brown has a massive, she has the interview with Chase Jarvis at the moment, which is about authenticity, and I did listen to it last night in bed, and that's another whole kettle of fish again.
Let's not go there right now. Anyway, should we just say, what do you think, person listening, what is authentic self? And then also say, see you next time, and thank you for listening. Thank you for
watching. See you next time. Have fun. Be safe.
Bye.
Bye.